Today, we're going to be talking about how less is more. Now, oftentimes we hear this, like there's the 20% of tasks that are the most important. We hear that you can get more done if you're actually focusing on the right things, or we don't have to do so much because a lot of it's busy work. Like there's tons of examples of this showing up, but oftentimes when we start with this idea, we are in this more is more line of thinking. And so what that looks like is our brain tells us we need more things, and then that's going to be better. We need to do more things. We need to have more things. We need to create more things. We need to experience more things. And what this often does is it leaves us with so much less. Because what happens is we feel overwhelmed, we feel stressed, we're running around so quickly, we're running around so fast. And what also happens is we experience time very quickly. So I want you to think about how sometimes it feels like you've had a really long day, or maybe it's like a really long hour when you notice that your time feels like you have so much more of it. But when you're in this more is more and you're running from thing to thing to thing to thing, what ends up happening is your day feels so much faster. So it really feels like you have less time instead of having more time. So when we want to start looking at how is less actually more, our brain immediately is like, no, it's not. We need to just continue on this more is more cycle because it doesn't want to stop. And so I wanted to give you just this very tangible way of getting started with this because the jump from like, I'm in this more and more thinking, and now I want to get into this less is more. We're not just going to go from there to there immediately. We actually want to take these steps in between. And so the first step that I would actually encourage you to do is just pause. Because when we're in this more and more, like I said, it's just again and another thing and another thing and another thing. And there's no pause. There's no time to stop and think. Because even if you do pause and stop and think, your brain's going to tell you, we need to go do this. We need to do that. We need to do this other thing. We need to do this. And then we often just go do that thing. And so we didn't actually get that pause. So the first thing you can actually do is just pause. Now, if your brain's telling you, which it often will, is we do not have time for that because we need to do this more is more thing. But if you can just say, okay, look, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. It's going to be fine. Nothing bad's going to happen in those 5 minutes. So I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to pause. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to look at this. Now, your brain is initially probably going to want to start screaming about all the things, right? Like I said, we need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do this. Just sit with that. Even though your brain is telling you, hey, we need to get up and do these things, we don't actually need to get up and do these things. We're just going to sit here and we're going to sit with that. And I'm going to tell you it's probably going to feel really uncomfortable, and that is okay. And that's part of the process. And then from there, we've just created a little bit of this distance. What did it feel like? What was it like? What can I experience? And then the next step you can actually take is just playing around with this idea. If I did less, how could that create more results or a better experience? Because it's not always about just creating more and more results. Because if we're not experiencing those results, if we're not having fun, if we're not enjoying ourselves, then what was the point in creating them? And so we end up creating this cycle where, yes, we have a lot of stuff, but now we're stressed, now we're overwhelmed, now we're running around like crazy. Instead of like, wait, if I just did these few things, how could that help me create more results, but also enjoy them more? And it's just using it as like a little thought experiment. And you don't have to like go out and change all these things or cut things out all of a sudden. It's just playing around with the idea in your brain. If this is something that were possible, how could it be possible? What would it look like? Like really just playing around with the idea without like committing to like, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to have to do everything right now. And if this is something you want to work on, going from like this more is more way of thinking, way of living to this less is more, where you have more time for you, more rest, you do less stuff, but you enjoy it so much more, then go to successbykayla.com to sign up for your free consult call. Because on this call, we're going to be able to talk about like, what is this more is more thinking creating in your life? Like, what does it look like? What are you struggling in? Why is this happening? We're going to talk about like, what would it look like for you in your life if there was this less is more? If you were doing less stuff, you're getting better results, you were experiencing it more. And then we're going to talk about like, what are the steps in between that will actually help you get there. And then we're going to talk about my 12-week coaching program, because in this program, we can talk about all of these pieces for 12 weeks so that you go from this more is more to less is more. And we work on everything in between week after week together so that it doesn't feel so hard or overwhelming or confusing. And if that's something you're interested in, go to successbykayla.com to sign up for that free call.